Poor young girl married 73-year-old millionaire. 1 week later, she was shocked by what she saw. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now let's dive into the story. It was a cold evening in late November when Sarah, a 22-year-old from a small town in the Midwest, sat nervously in a luxurious restaurant in New York City. She had never seen anything like this before. The grand chandelier above, the polished silverware on the pristine white tablecloth, and the elegant diners surrounding her, all of it made her feel like she didn't belong. Her fingers twitched anxiously as she adjusted her dress, a simple but elegant piece she had bought on sale a few weeks ago. It wasn't much, but it was the best she could afford. Sarah had come to New York with one purpose: to secure a life-changing deal. Her mother was ill, and the medical bills were piling up. Her father's business had gone under, and the small savings they had left were barely enough to get by. When she had received an unexpected phone call from a wealthy businessman, Thomas Williamson, offering her a marriage proposal in exchange for financial security, she had been hesitant. But with nothing else left to lose, she agreed. She was now sitting across from Thomas, a man who was 73 years old. He had a silver beard, sharp blue eyes, and a demeanor that commanded respect. His presence was overwhelming, and Sarah could feel the weight of the situation pressing down on her. He looked at her with a faint smile. "So, Sarah, are you ready for our new life together?" His voice was calm, but there was something unsettling about it. Sarah nodded, forcing a smile. "Yes, Mr. Williamson, I'm ready." She had no idea what to expect from this marriage. It wasn't one of love, but of necessity. She was here to secure a future, not to find romance. But as the evening progressed, Sarah couldn't help but notice the way Thomas watched her. His gaze was not one of mere business. There was something deeper, something more personal in his eyes. She wondered if this was all just part of the deal, or if he was genuinely interested in her. As they dined, they exchanged pleasantries. Thomas talked about his business empire, his past relationships, and his plans for the future. Sarah listened intently, trying to keep the conversation light, but inside, her mind raced. She couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched, evaluated, as if she were some kind of trophy. She had made her decision out of desperation, but now that she was here, she began to question whether this was really what she wanted. As the night ended, Thomas extended his hand. "Shall we make this official tomorrow, Sarah?" His words were smooth, almost rehearsed, but there was a hint of expectation in them. Sarah hesitated, but only for a moment. She needed this, for her family, for her future. She placed her hand in his, sealing the deal. The next day, they were married in a small, private ceremony. There were no flowers, no excitement, no family or friends, just the cold, sterile presence of lawyers and a notary. Sarah was now Mrs. Thomas Williamson. Little did she know that this decision would soon lead her down a path she could never have imagined. 1 week later, Sarah was sitting in the living room of their mansion, her eyes glued to the television. The soft hum of the air conditioner filled the room as she absent-mindedly flipped through the channels. She had already gotten used to the luxury of the mansion, the servants, and the life of wealth. But something was off. Thomas hadn't been around much. He was busy with work, just as he had been when they first met. She told herself that this was just the nature of their arrangement. She was here for security, and he was here for whatever reasons he had. But then, the unexpected happened. As she was about to change the channel, she heard a faint noise coming from upstairs. It was strange. It sounded like footsteps, but they were too light, too quick. Her curiosity got the best of her, and she stood up to investigate. As she climbed the stairs, she heard a voice, a woman's voice, laughing softly. Sarah's heart raced. She pushed open the door to the bedroom, only to find Thomas in bed with another woman, a younger woman, who was smiling at him as if nothing was out of the ordinary. Sarah stood frozen in the doorway, her world shattering in an instant. This was not the man she had married, the man she had trusted, the man she had believed would give her a better life. In that moment, Sarah realized that everything she had thought she knew about Thomas Williamson was a lie, and her life, as she had known it, would never be the same. Sarah stood there, frozen in shock. The image before her felt like something out of a nightmare, yet she couldn't look away. Thomas, her 73-year-old husband, lay in bed with another woman, a woman much younger than Sarah herself. Her heart raced as she struggled to process what she had just witnessed. She had married Thomas in good faith, believing that this arrangement, while unconventional, would give her the financial security she so desperately needed. But now, standing in that doorway, it felt as though the world she had built for herself was crumbling. She had no idea who this man really was. The man who had promised her a new life, who had offered her everything she thought she wanted, was nothing like the person she thought she married. The woman in the bed was smiling at Thomas, whispering something that Sarah couldn't hear. Thomas, completely unaware of Sarah's presence, responded with a smile, as if the two were perfectly comfortable. Sarah's body went cold. She slowly backed away from the door, unable to tear her eyes away from the scene, her mind racing. She felt betrayed. She had been lied to, not only by Thomas, but by the entire idea of what their marriage was supposed to be. Was she just a pawn in his game? Had he brought her into this marriage only for appearances, to serve some hidden agenda? She turned and rushed down the stairs, her chest tightening with every step. Her breath was shallow, and her thoughts were swirling like a tornado. She couldn't stay in that house any longer. It was suffocating. As she reached the living room, she felt as if everything she had believed in, the future she thought she was securing, had been ripped away in that one moment. She grabbed her phone, her hands shaking as she dialed. Her best friend, Emma. It rang twice before Emma answered. "Sarah, what's wrong?" "You sound," Sarah interrupted her, her voice barely above a whisper. "Emma, I don't know what to do. I walked in on him. He was with someone else. I feel like I'm losing my mind." Emma's voice softened immediately. "What happened? Who was she?" Sarah could barely speak. "She was younger. A woman I've never seen before. I don't even know what this means anymore, Emma. I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought I was helping my family. And now," her voice trailed off as she struggled to hold back tears. "I'm sorry," Emma said gently, "but you need to leave. Get out of there. You don't deserve to be treated like this." Sarah closed her eyes, wiping away the tear that slipped down her cheek. She had no choice but to leave. She had to leave Thomas and the life he had promised her. The next morning, after a sleepless night filled with turmoil, Sarah packed a small bag. She didn't know where she would go, but she couldn't stay in that house for one more minute. She walked out of the front door of the mansion, leaving everything behind: her marriage, the wealth, the luxury, and the illusion of security. She hailed a cab and told the driver to take her to the nearest airport. As the cab drove through the city, Sarah couldn't stop replaying the events from the night before. She had walked into a nightmare, but in a strange way, it had awakened something inside her. A part of her that had been lost in the whirlwind of expectations, of dreams that weren't truly hers. She realized, standing there on the doorstep of her marriage, that she had sacrificed so much for a life that wasn't even real. She had let herself be swept away by the idea of security, of wealth, without considering what it would cost her. The cab finally reached the airport, and Sarah stepped out. She stood there for a moment, looking up at the towering terminal building, the world bustling around her. For the first time since she had arrived in New York, she felt free. But with that freedom came uncertainty. She had no idea what the future would hold, but she knew that it couldn't be worse than the life she had just left behind. Sarah bought a one-way ticket to her hometown, where her mother was still recovering from her illness. It wasn't much, but it was all she had. She didn't know what she would do when she got there, but she had to return. Maybe this was her chance to rebuild her life from the ground up. No longer a pawn in someone else's game. She could make her own choices. The flight was long, and Sarah had plenty of time to think. As the plane soared high above the clouds, she realized something important. She was no longer just a girl looking for a way out. She was a woman who had survived a storm, and now she was ready to face whatever came next. She knew it wouldn't be easy, but for the first time in a long time, Sarah felt a sense of hope. She was not defined by her marriage to Thomas or by the wealth he had promised her. She was defined by her choices, and it was time to make new ones. When she finally arrived at her hometown, Sarah was greeted by her mother, who was weak but still smiling. It felt like a lifetime ago that she had left this place, but now, in the quiet comfort of her family home, Sarah realized that this was where she truly belonged. She wasn't looking for a fairy tale anymore. She was looking for her own truth. And she would find it, no matter how long it took. The weeks that followed were filled with uncertainty for Sarah. The small town she returned to was far from the life she had left behind. But with each passing day, she found a sense of peace that she hadn't felt in a long time. Her mother's health was improving, and though they were struggling financially, the weight of her decision to leave Thomas felt lighter with every step she took away from the world of luxury she had known. As Sarah settled back into her old life, she began to rediscover herself. The work she did at a local cafe was nothing glamorous, but it was honest. She made just enough to get by, and that was enough. No more endless days of trying to fit into a world that never felt like her own. No more pretending. As the days turned into weeks, she found herself making new friends, reconnecting with people who had known her before all the chaos. They didn't care about her past or her brief stint as a millionaire's wife. They cared about Sarah, the girl who had once dreamed of becoming a teacher, who loved reading novels and had an infectious laugh. It was in these simple moments that she began to feel whole again. One evening, while Sarah was closing the cafe, she was surprised to see a familiar face standing by the door. It was Ethan, a man she had met years ago, before everything had changed. He had been a regular at the cafe, and they'd shared countless conversations about books, life, and dreams. Ethan had always been kind, but she hadn't seen him since her return. He smiled warmly as she approached. "Hey, Sarah. It's been a while." "Yeah, it has," she replied, trying to suppress the mix of emotions swirling inside her. She hadn't expected to see him, not here, not now. Ethan stepped closer, his expression serious. "I heard what happened. I'm sorry, but I'm glad you're back. You're doing okay, right?" Sarah nodded, though she wasn't sure if she was. "I'm getting there. It's a process." Ethan's gaze softened. "If you ever need anything, you know I'm here, right?" She smiled faintly, touched by his words. He had always been someone she could talk to, someone who made her feel heard. But now, in the quiet aftermath of her broken marriage, she wasn't sure what she was looking for anymore. Ethan seemed to sense the hesitation in her. "I get it. No pressure. Just know that I'm around." As Sarah locked up the cafe and they walked outside together, the crisp evening air felt refreshing. It had been a long time since she had felt this sense of normalcy. For the first time in months, she felt like herself again. Over the next few weeks, Sarah and Ethan began to spend more time together. What started as casual conversations over coffee slowly evolved into something more. They talked about everything and nothing at all. For the first time since she had left Thomas, Sarah found herself laughing without reservation. Ethan was easy to talk to, and the way he listened to her made her feel valued, not for the woman she had been, but for the person she was becoming. One night, after a long walk through the park, Ethan turned to her with a gentle smile. "I know you're still figuring things out, Sarah, but I just want you to know that I'm here, however you need me." The sincerity in his voice made her heart skip a beat. She wasn't sure what she was ready for, but being with Ethan felt different. He wasn't trying to change her, didn't want anything from her except her company. For the first time, she was being seen as Sarah, not the woman who had been married to a billionaire. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice barely audible. She didn't know what the future held, but for the first time, she wasn't afraid. She had a feeling that whatever came next, she would be able to handle it. As the weeks passed, Sarah began to rebuild her life in a way that felt true to her. She enrolled in classes to finish her degree, something she had put off for years. The weight of her past slowly faded, replaced by the excitement of new opportunities. And while she wasn't looking for love, she couldn't deny the connection she felt with Ethan. But just as Sarah started to believe that maybe, just maybe, she could have a future of her own choosing, her past came crashing back into her life. It was one cold evening when Sarah received an unexpected phone call from her lawyer. "Sarah, we need to talk. It's about Thomas." Her heart sank. The name she had tried to escape was now pulling her back into a world she had left behind. Thomas Williamson, the man who had once promised her everything, was now demanding that she return to his side. But Sarah had made her decision. She was no longer the woman who had married him for his wealth or security. She was her own person, and she wasn't about to let him control her again. The phone call left her shaken, but she knew what she had to do. She wasn't going back to him, no matter what he said or did. She had already walked away from that life once, and this time, she would not allow herself to be pulled back into a world of lies and deceit. The next day, Sarah called Ethan, her voice steady despite the turmoil inside. "Ethan, I need to talk to you. There's something I have to tell you." She didn't know what the future held for her, but one thing was certain. She wasn't going to let her past define her any longer. She was ready to take control of her own destiny. The next few days were filled with uncertainty for Sarah. Her heart still heavy from the phone call with her lawyer. She knew the time had come to confront the past once and for all. She had been living in the quiet comfort of her hometown, embracing the simple life she had once longed for. But Thomas's demand for her return had shaken her to the core. She couldn't let him control her anymore. No matter how much wealth or power he had, Sarah wasn't going to be the woman she was before. She had made peace with her past, and she wasn't going to let it define her future. That afternoon, Sarah found herself standing at the doorstep of her childhood home, the one place she had always felt safe. Her mother was in the living room, resting in her favorite chair, the soft hum of the television filling the silence between them. Sarah had just finished speaking with Ethan, telling him everything about her past and the phone call she had received. Ethan had been supportive, as he always was, but she still felt uncertain about the choices she was about to make. The pressure of her past life loomed over her, and Sarah had to admit, it was hard to shake the feeling that something still tied her to it. As she sat down beside her mother, she tried to find the right words to express what she was feeling. "Mom, I've made a decision. I'm not going back to him. I'm not going back to that life," Sarah said softly. Her mother smiled weakly, her eyes filled with understanding. "I know, darling. You've always been strong. You don't need to go back to that man or that world. You have your own life now. You're free." Her mother's words hit Sarah harder than she expected. She had spent so much time running from her past, from the choices she had made, that she hadn't realized the strength she had gained in the process. It was a reminder that her past didn't have to control her. She had the power to choose her own path. Over the next few days, Sarah began taking the necessary steps to solidify her new life. She enrolled in classes at the local college, something she had put off for years. She felt a sense of excitement that she hadn't felt in so long. For the first time, she was building her future, not just surviving. Ethan continued to be a steady presence in her life, and their bond grew stronger. They spent evenings together, talking about their dreams, their hopes, and their struggles. Sarah realized that, for the first time in a long time, she wasn't alone. Ethan had become someone she could rely on, someone who didn't want anything from her except her company. She wasn't just a woman recovering from a broken marriage. She was a woman rediscovering herself, her passions, and her strength. One evening, as Sarah sat in the cafe after closing, Ethan came in to meet her. He had a small smile on his face as he approached her. "How's everything going?" he asked, sitting down across from her. Sarah smiled, feeling a warmth in her chest. "Better. I've been thinking about a lot of things, and I think I'm finally ready to move forward. For so long, I've been carrying the weight of that marriage, of all the mistakes I've made. But now, it feels like I'm ready to let it go. I'm not running anymore." Ethan's smile deepened, his eyes soft with affection. "I'm glad to hear that. You deserve to be happy, Sarah." As they sat there, enjoying the quiet of the evening, Sarah couldn't help but feel a sense of calm wash over her. She had finally made peace with her past, and she was ready to take control of her future. It wasn't going to be easy, but for the first time, she was confident that she was making the right choice. The following week, Sarah received another call from her lawyer. This time, the news was different. Thomas had dropped his demand for her return. Instead, he had made a settlement offer. A part of Sarah considered it, the temptation to take the money and run lingering in the back of her mind. But deep down, she knew she couldn't go back to that life. It wasn't just about the money. It was about reclaiming her life, her identity, and her happiness. She called her lawyer and declined the offer. She had made her decision, and there was no turning back. As time went on, Sarah continued to build a life she was proud of. She completed her degree, found a job that she enjoyed, and, most importantly, she learned to live for herself. She didn't need the wealth or the fame that Thomas had promised her. She had found something far more valuable, the freedom to choose her own path. And with Ethan by her side, she knew that whatever came next, she was ready. Her past was just that, the past. She had broken free, and now, she was free to live her own life on her own terms. Sarah woke up to the sound of rain tapping softly against the window. It had been a few months since her decision to walk away from Thomas, and though her life had settled into a quieter rhythm, there were still moments when the weight of everything she had gone through seemed to linger, like the mist outside her window. She had been working at the local bookstore for the past couple of months, a job she enjoyed more than she had expected. It wasn't glamorous, but it allowed her to surround herself with the one thing that had always been a constant source of comfort for her: books. The rain had a calming effect on Sarah as she sat down at her kitchen table, sipping her coffee. Her small apartment was cozy, the walls adorned with pictures of her family, and a few framed quotes she found inspiring. She hadn't realized how much she needed this peace until she experienced it. No more pretending, no more playing a role for someone else. She was finally Sarah again. As she glanced at the clock, she noticed it was almost time for her to leave for work. She had a small window of time before her shift started, so she decided to check her phone, scrolling through messages and emails. There was one from her lawyer. Sarah hesitated before opening it. After everything that had happened with Thomas, she had made it clear that she wanted no further involvement with him or his affairs. She had assumed that was the end of it. But the email was different. The subject line simply read, "Thomas." Sarah's pulse quickened as she opened the message. "Sarah, I hope this message finds you well. I wanted to inform you that Thomas has passed away. His family has requested that you attend the funeral as per his wishes. There are also some matters regarding his estate that require your attention. Please contact me at your earliest convenience." Sarah's heart skipped a beat. The last time she had seen Thomas, he was a man whose life had been defined by power and control. He had been the one to pull the strings, manipulating everyone around him, including her. The thought that he was gone felt surreal. She didn't know how to feel. Part of her was relieved. This chapter was over. But another part of her felt unsettled. Thomas had been a part of her life for a long time, even if their marriage had been nothing more than a contract. She set the phone down, her mind racing with 1,000 thoughts. What did he want from her? What did his family expect? And why now, after everything? After a few moments, Sarah took a deep breath and decided she would face this head-on. She couldn't keep running from her past forever. The very idea of dealing with his estate was uncomfortable, but it was something she needed to do to fully move forward. She called her lawyer to set up a meeting. A few days later, Sarah found herself at a small chapel, standing in front of a simple wooden casket. The funeral was quiet, not an event filled with mourning, but rather one of finality. There were a few people gathered, all of them older, dressed in somber black suits. Sarah's gaze drifted around the room, looking for any sign of recognition, but there were no familiar faces. She wasn't sure why Thomas had wanted her there. He hadn't reached out to her in months, and their marriage had been more about business than love. She had walked away from him, and now, here she was, standing in the midst of his final farewell. It felt odd, like an intrusion into a world she no longer belonged to. After the service, she was led to a small office at the back of the chapel, where she met with Thomas's lawyer. The man was in his late 50s, dressed in a dark suit, his expression serious. "Ms. Williamson," he greeted her with a polite nod. "I'm sorry for your loss." Sarah simply nodded in return, her voice catching in her throat. She hadn't expected to feel anything, but standing there, facing the lawyer, she realized how much her emotions had been suppressed. She had been so focused on moving on, she hadn't allowed herself to feel the complexity of the situation. "Thank you," she managed. "I never expected to be here." The lawyer cleared his throat. "I understand. There are a few matters we need to discuss regarding Mr. Williamson's estate. He did leave some instructions for you, but I must warn you, they are unconventional." Sarah's heart skipped a beat. What could he possibly want from her now? The lawyer opened a folder and placed a few documents in front of her. "According to the will, Mr. Williamson has left you a portion of his estate, his assets, properties, and funds. However, there are stipulations." Sarah looked up at the lawyer, her brow furrowed. "What kind of stipulations?" The lawyer hesitated before speaking. "He requested that you use the inheritance to create a charitable foundation in his name, specifically to help those who are less fortunate. He wanted you to take charge of it, and to give back to the community that he had so often overlooked." Sarah was stunned. This was the last thing she had expected. A part of her wanted to decline. This was not a life she had chosen. But another part of her saw the potential in what he was asking. A chance to make a real difference. A chance to use the wealth she had gained through this strange, twisted journey to help others. It was something she could never have imagined doing with Thomas before, but now, it seemed like the right way to make something good come out of the darkness. Sarah looked down at the papers in front of her. She felt a strange sense of responsibility, not for Thomas, but for the legacy he had left behind. Maybe this was her chance to truly step into the woman she wanted to be, one who could rise above the past and create a future of her own making. "I'll do it," she said finally, her voice steady. The lawyer gave her a knowing nod. "I thought you might. There's a lot of work ahead, but I believe you can handle it." As Sarah left the office, her heart felt lighter than it had in months. She had made peace with her past, and now she had a new purpose, one that didn't just involve surviving, but thriving. She was no longer defined by her marriage to Thomas. She was defined by the choices she made from this point forward. Months passed, and Sarah found herself in a world that was once foreign to her. The charitable foundation she had inherited from Thomas's estate became her new focus, a cause she never imagined taking on. She threw herself into the work, determined to make it a success. At first, the task felt overwhelming. She wasn't used to running a foundation, and the weight of the responsibility bore heavily on her shoulders. But as time went on, Sarah started to see the impact she was making. The foundation began to support local communities, providing food, healthcare, and education to families in need. It was a difficult journey, but it felt right. Sarah could feel a sense of fulfillment she had never experienced during her time with Thomas. For the first time, she was using the wealth she had inherited to do something good, something that mattered. She was no longer just a woman who had been married to a millionaire. She was a woman who was making a difference. Ethan, who had always been there for her, continued to support her. They spent more time together, their bond growing stronger. The late-night phone calls, the quiet walks in the park, and the moments of laughter between them became the foundation of something real, something Sarah had never thought she would have. For the first time in her life, she felt truly loved, not for her money or her past, but for who she was. One evening, as Sarah sat in her office reviewing the foundation's progress, she received a call from her lawyer. "Sarah, there's something you need to know," the lawyer said, his tone more serious than usual. "We've been going over Thomas's assets, and there's a clause in his will that you need to be aware of." Sarah's heart sank. "What is it?" she asked, already dreading what might come next. "It's about the mansion," the lawyer continued. "Thomas left it to you, but there are some conditions attached. If you don't fulfill them within the next year, the mansion will be turned over to the family." Sarah sat back in her chair, stunned. The mansion, the place where she had lived with Thomas, was now hers, but only if she met the conditions outlined in the will. "What are the conditions?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. "You need to establish the foundation's long-term success. The mansion was part of his legacy, and he wanted it to be used to further the cause of helping those in need. If the foundation doesn't become self-sustaining, it will be taken from you." Sarah felt a rush of emotions. The mansion was the last thing she wanted. It held too many painful memories. But the idea of losing the foundation, everything she had worked for, was even worse. She realized she had no choice. She had to make this work, not just for the mansion, but for the people who had relied on the foundation's success. Over the next few months, Sarah worked tirelessly to ensure that the foundation would thrive. She hired more staff, expanded the programs, and worked closely with the community to ensure their needs were met. Ethan continued to be her rock, helping her stay grounded through it all. He never pushed her to make decisions, but he was always there, offering his support and love. As the deadline approached, Sarah began to feel a sense of accomplishment she hadn't felt in years. The foundation was now on solid ground, and the mansion was no longer a symbol of Thomas's control over her life. It had become a place where she could continue her work and live her life on her own terms. One evening, as she walked through the grand halls of the mansion, Sarah realized that it no longer felt like a place of fear and obligation. It was her home now, a home she had built for herself. She wasn't living in the shadow of Thomas's legacy anymore. She had created something of her own. That night, she called Ethan. "Ethan," she said, her voice filled with emotion, "I did it. The foundation is going to be fine. We're going to be fine." Ethan's voice on the other end of the line was filled with pride. "I knew you could do it, Sarah. You've always been strong, even when you didn't realize it." Sarah smiled, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. "Thank you for believing in me. I couldn't have done it without you. The next morning, Sarah went to the lawyer's office to finalize the details. She signed the papers that officially secured the mansion and the future of the foundation. As she walked out of the office, the weight that had been hanging over her for so long seemed to lift. She had done it. She had built a new life for herself, one that was hers to shape. As Sarah walked through the mansion, her mind raced with possibilities for the future. She had learned that it wasn't about the money, the mansion, or even the past. It was about finding meaning in her own life, and that was something no amount of wealth could provide. She had found her purpose in helping others, in creating a future that wasn't defined by the mistakes of the past. She looked out of the window, the morning light filtering through the trees, and for the first time in a long time, she felt at peace. She was no longer just the woman who had been married to a millionaire. She was Sarah, a woman who had fought for her freedom, found love, and built a life that was her own. As Sarah stood at the top of the mansion staircase, looking out over the sprawling estate below, she felt a sense of accomplishment wash over her. The foundation was thriving, the mansion was hers to keep, and for the first time in years, she wasn't just surviving. She was living. Her life was now her own, shaped by her choices, not by the man she had once been married to. But even as the weight of her past lifted, there was still one lingering question. What came next? She had everything she had ever worked for: freedom, independence, a new sense of purpose. And yet, a part of her wondered if there was still something missing. As Sarah moved through her days, managing the foundation and overseeing its growth, she found herself increasingly drawn to the idea of expanding her influence beyond just local communities. The people she had helped, the lives she had touched, had shown her that her work could have a bigger impact. And perhaps, for the first time in her life, she was ready to step out of the shadow of her past and into something greater. It was late one evening when Ethan called. His voice was full of excitement, something that was rare for him. "Sarah, I have an idea," he said. "I've been thinking a lot about your foundation and the work you're doing. What if we expanded it? What if we reached more people, not just here, but globally? There are so many communities that need help, and we could be the ones to bring it to them." Sarah was taken aback at first. Expanding the foundation was a huge leap, one that would require more resources, more time, and a lot more work. But the more she thought about it, the more it seemed like the next logical step. "You really think we can do this?" she asked. "You've been doing an incredible job with what you have," Ethan replied. "But imagine the difference you could make with a global reach. I believe in you, Sarah. You've already proven that you're capable of so much." As she sat with Ethan's words echoing in her mind, Sarah realized that this was exactly the challenge she had been waiting for. The idea of making a larger impact, of reaching beyond the confines of her small town, was exciting. It was terrifying, but it was also exactly what she needed. She was ready to move forward, to take her foundation to new heights, and to see just how far she could go. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. Sarah began reaching out to global partners, connecting with organizations and philanthropists who shared her vision. She spent long hours strategizing, putting together plans to expand her programs to new countries, to provide resources to those who needed them most. She worked tirelessly, her mind racing with ideas, her heart filled with hope for what was to come. Throughout it all, Ethan remained by her side, offering support and advice, keeping her grounded when the stress threatened to overwhelm her. Sarah realized that, in a way, he had become not just a partner in the foundation, but a partner in life. Their relationship had deepened over time, and now, as they worked together on this new venture, Sarah couldn't help but wonder where this journey would lead them. Was this the beginning of something more than just the foundation? She wasn't sure, but one thing was clear. Ethan was someone she could trust, someone who had always believed in her, even when she didn't believe in herself. One day, as they sat in her office, reviewing a new proposal from an international partner, Sarah looked up at Ethan and smiled. "I think we can do this," she said, her voice full of conviction. "We can change the world, Ethan. One step at a time." Ethan's smile matched hers, his eyes filled with pride. "I always knew you could." As they continued to work side by side, the foundation grew in ways Sarah had never imagined. They expanded their outreach to countries in Africa, Asia, and Latin America, providing education, medical care, and resources to communities in desperate need. The work was challenging, but the rewards were worth it. Sarah could see the impact they were making in real time. She had finally found her purpose, not just helping others, but changing lives on a global scale. But even as the foundation flourished, Sarah knew that her journey wasn't over. She had come so far, but there was still so much to learn, so much to do. As the months passed, Sarah and Ethan continued to build the foundation together, growing closer in the process. They spent more time together outside of work, exploring the world, discovering new places, and continuing to grow as a couple. Sarah's past no longer held power over her. She was no longer the woman who had been married to a wealthy businessman, manipulated by his control and lies. She was Sarah, the woman who had found her voice, built a successful foundation, and learned to live a life that was truly her own. As she stood at the front of a crowd at a charity gala in New York, her heart swelled with pride. This was her moment. This was the life she had created. And as she looked around the room, seeing all the people who had supported her journey, Sarah realized that, for the first time in her life, she was exactly where she was supposed to be. Months passed, and the foundation continued to grow, becoming more influential in the global community. Sarah stood at the center of it all, guiding the team, forging new partnerships, and pushing boundaries in ways she had never imagined. The mansion she once feared had transformed into a symbol of her strength and resilience. It was no longer a place of confinement or sorrow. It was now a place of possibility. As the foundation reached new milestones, Sarah found herself reflecting on how far she had come. Just a year ago, she had been lost, unsure of what her future held. Now, she was leading an organization that was making a real impact in the world. But even as her professional life flourished, Sarah knew that there was more to her journey than just success in business. She had rebuilt her life from the ground up, but deep inside, she still longed for something more, something that had eluded her for years. Love. Ethan had been by her side through it all, offering his support, his love, and his unwavering belief in her. But over time, Sarah had come to realize that their relationship had changed. What had started as a deep friendship had slowly evolved into something more, and she knew it. They had shared countless moments together, late-night talks, walks in the park, quiet dinners, and celebrations of their achievements. But now, as their professional and personal lives intertwined, Sarah felt that they had reached a turning point. They were no longer just two people working together for a common cause. There was something deeper between them. One evening, after a long day of meetings and strategy sessions, Sarah and Ethan sat together on the terrace of the mansion, overlooking the city skyline. The sun had just set, casting a golden glow over everything. It was one of those moments that felt like time had slowed down, giving them a chance to breathe and reflect. Sarah, Ethan began, his voice soft but steady. I've been thinking a lot lately. Sarah turned to him, sensing that something important was coming. What about? About us, he said, his eyes meeting hers. About the way things have changed between us. I know we've been through a lot together, and I've always respected you for your strength. But lately, I've started to realize that what we have goes beyond just business. It's something more. Something real. Sarah's heart skipped a beat. She had felt the same way, but hearing Ethan say it aloud made everything feel so much more real. She had never expected to find love again, not after everything she had been through, but here it was, right in front of her. Ethan, she whispered, her voice barely audible. I've been feeling the same way. I didn't know if I could allow myself to feel this again, but here we are. Ethan reached out, taking her hand in his. I know we've both been through a lot, but I can't imagine my life without you in it. You've brought me more joy, more purpose than I ever thought possible. Sarah felt a warmth spread through her chest. She had never felt more seen, more understood, than in that moment. For so long, she had believed that love was something that had to be sacrificed for her work, for her independence. But with Ethan, she realized that she didn't have to choose between the two. She could have both. I've been afraid too, Ethan, she said, her voice steady now. Afraid of what this might mean, afraid of letting myself get too close. But I'm not afraid anymore. I know that I want this. I want us. Ethan smiled, the kind of smile that reached his eyes and made Sarah feel like the world had just become a little brighter. Then let's make it happen, Sarah. Let's do this together, not just for the foundation, but for us. And so, with that simple promise, everything changed. Their relationship, once rooted in friendship and shared goals, deepened into something more meaningful and profound. They became partners not just in business, but in life. As the weeks passed, their bond grew stronger. They supported each other through challenges, celebrated each other's victories, and built a future together. Sarah knew that the foundation would continue to be her focus, but now, it wasn't the only thing that mattered. Love had entered her life again, and this time, it wasn't something she had to choose between. She could have both love and purpose, and she knew that she would make the most of it. One evening, a few months later, Sarah and Ethan stood together at a gala, celebrating the foundation's most successful year yet. As they shared a dance under the soft glow of the lights, Sarah realized that this was everything she had ever wanted. A purpose, a future, and someone by her side who truly understood her. As they swayed together, she could feel the weight of the past slowly slipping away. The mansion, the foundation, the legacy of Thomas, none of it defined her anymore. She was Sarah, a woman who had fought for her own happiness, for the chance to create something meaningful, and most importantly, for the chance to love and be loved in return. This was her life now, and she was ready for whatever came next. With Ethan by her side, there was no challenge too great, no obstacle too big. Together, they would continue to change the world, one step at a time. As the months passed, Sarah and Ethan continued to build their life together. The foundation was stronger than ever, and they had expanded their reach to even more communities in need. They had faced challenges, of course, but each obstacle only made them more determined. They were partners in every sense of the word, not only in their professional lives, but in their personal lives as well. Sarah often found herself reflecting on how much she had grown, how far she had come from the scared, uncertain woman who had first walked away from her marriage to Thomas. The life she now had was everything she had ever wanted, a sense of purpose, the ability to make a difference in the world, and a partner who truly understood her. Yet, despite the success of the foundation and the joy she found in her relationship with Ethan, there was still a lingering feeling inside her. She knew that she had come so far, but she couldn't shake the sense that there was more to her journey, a final step to truly leaving her past behind. It was during one of their many late-night talks that Sarah voiced this to Ethan. They were sitting on the terrace of the mansion, the night sky clear and filled with stars, the cool evening air wrapping around them as they sipped their drinks. "Ethan," Sarah began, her voice quieter than usual, "I've been thinking a lot lately. I'm happy, more than I ever thought possible, but there's something that still doesn't feel quite finished. I've moved on from Thomas, from that life, but I think there's one more thing I need to do. Something that will finally close that chapter for good." Ethan turned to her, his expression soft and understanding. "What do you mean?" he asked gently. Sarah hesitated for a moment, searching for the right words. "I think I need to go back to the place where it all started. I need to face it one last time, not for closure, but for my own peace of mind. I have to see it for myself, to really understand who I was then and how far I've come. I need to see the house and everything that comes with it." Ethan didn't hesitate. He understood. "If you think it's what you need, then we'll go together. You don't have to do this alone." His words comforted her more than she could express. She had come so far, but this final step, confronting her past, was something she needed to do on her own terms, with Ethan by her side. Over the next few days, Sarah made the arrangements. She hadn't been back to Thomas's mansion since she had left. She wasn't sure what she would find there, or how it would feel. Would it feel like a weight lifting from her shoulders, or would the memories come rushing back, overwhelming her once again? As the day of the visit approached, Sarah's anxiety grew. She tried to convince herself that it was just a house, just a place. But she knew better. That house had been a symbol of everything she had lost: her freedom, her identity, and her belief in herself. It had been a cage, even if she hadn't realized it at the time. The morning of their visit, Sarah and Ethan set out. The drive to the mansion was long, the silence between them comfortable but filled with unspoken thoughts. Ethan was there to support her, but Sarah knew this was something she had to face on her own. As they approached the mansion, Sarah's heart began to race. The massive structure loomed ahead, the towering columns and grand gates still standing tall, just as they had the last time she had seen it. The mansion, with its cold, imposing presence, had once been a symbol of power, wealth, and control. Now, it felt like a ghost, something from a past that was no longer hers. They pulled into the driveway, the crunch of the gravel beneath the tires echoing in the stillness of the estate. Sarah hesitated for a moment before stepping out of the car. The house seemed even more daunting up close, but as Sarah stood there, she realized that the fear she had once felt was no longer there. It had been replaced by something else, a sense of detachment. This house no longer had power over her. She had reclaimed her life, and no building, no matter how grand, could change that. Together, Sarah and Ethan made their way inside. The house was just as she remembered, opulent, cold, and lifeless. The furniture, the decor, even the smell of the place brought back a flood of memories. But this time, as Sarah walked through the halls, she wasn't overwhelmed by them. Instead, she felt an odd sense of peace. The mansion was just a place. It was a place that had once held her captive, but now, it was nothing more than a relic of her past. They reached the main room, the one where Sarah had once spent so many nights feeling trapped. She stood there for a moment, taking it all in, the high ceilings, the grand chandelier, the expensive furniture, and then, she let it go. This place no longer held any power over her. She had freed herself from it long ago. "Are you okay?" Ethan asked, his voice soft. Sarah nodded, a small smile playing at the corners of her lips. "I am now. I thought I needed closure, but I think I already had it. I've moved on. This place doesn't define me anymore." Ethan stepped closer to her, placing his hand on hers. "You've come so far, Sarah. You've built something amazing, and you've found happiness. This place doesn't have a hold on you anymore, and neither does your past." Sarah looked at him, her heart full of gratitude. "Thank you for being here with me. I couldn't have done this without you." Together, they left the mansion, leaving behind the past where it belonged. Sarah had faced it head-on, and in doing so, she had truly freed herself. It was time to move forward, and with Ethan by her side, she knew that whatever came next, she was ready. As Sarah and Ethan drove away from the mansion, Sarah's heart felt lighter than it had in a long time. The visit, the closure, the quiet acceptance of everything she had left behind, had allowed her to fully step into her new life. They didn't speak much on the drive home, but the silence was comfortable, a reflection of how far they had come together. The mansion, once a symbol of control and wealth, no longer held any sway over Sarah. It had been a place of her past, a past she had fought so hard to escape, and now, it felt like just another memory, one that she could finally leave behind without regret. The next few weeks were filled with quiet reflection. For Sarah, she continued her work with the foundation, but she found herself spending more time at the mansion. She had transformed it into a center for the foundation, turning the once cold, imposing structure into a warm space where volunteers gathered, meetings were held, and future projects were planned. The mansion, while still grand, felt like a part of her life now, not the prison it once was. As Sarah threw herself into the work of the foundation, she began to realize that her connection with Ethan had only deepened. Their partnership was not just professional anymore. It was personal, and it was growing stronger every day. They spent their evenings together, discussing the future, the foundation's goals, and their dreams. But even more than that, they spent time in quiet moments, sharing meals, enjoying each other's company, and truly building a life together. Sarah knew that she had found something special in Ethan. He was not only her partner in work, but in life as well. He had been there for her when she was at her lowest, when she had no idea who she was or what her future would look like. Now, as they sat together in the kitchen one night, Sarah felt a sense of peace. The life she had built was hers, and she had found someone to share it with. As Ethan stirred the pot on the stove, Sarah couldn't help but smile. "I never imagined this would be my life," she said softly. "I thought I would just be a person defined by my past, by the things I had done and the mistakes I had made. But now, I see how far I've come. I'm proud of the life I've built." Ethan smiled back at her, his eyes full of warmth. "You've done more than build a life, Sarah. You've built a legacy, and I'm honored to be a part of it." His words meant more to Sarah than he knew. She had always feared that she would be seen as the woman who had been married to a rich man, the woman who had inherited a fortune. But Ethan didn't see her that way. He saw her for who she truly was, someone who had worked hard to rebuild her life, someone who had found purpose and meaning in helping others. As their relationship continued to grow, Sarah found herself looking to the future with excitement, something she hadn't felt in years. The world was now open to her in ways she had never imagined. She had the foundation, she had Ethan, and she had the confidence to take on whatever came next. But even as everything seemed perfect, there was still one thing on Sarah's mind: children. She had always wanted to be a mother, but after her past experience, she had been unsure if it was something she could handle. She had built a life of independence, and the idea of having a child brought with it a new level of responsibility, of commitment, that Sarah wasn't sure she was ready for. It was one evening, a few months later, when Sarah found herself sitting on the porch with Ethan, the soft glow of the sunset painting the sky in shades of pink and orange. They had been talking about the future, about the work they still had to do with the foundation, when the topic came up. "Do you ever think about having kids?" Ethan asked gently, his voice calm, as though he already knew the question was on her mind. Sarah looked at him, her heart racing. "I've thought about it," she said softly, "but I don't know if I'm ready. I've spent so much of my life focused on work, on rebuilding myself. I don't want to bring a child into this life if I'm not ready to give them everything they deserve." Ethan reached over and took her hand, squeezing it gently. "Sarah, you don't have to have it all figured out right now, but I think you'd make an incredible mother. You've already shown how much you care, how much love you have to give. And whatever decision you make, I'll be here, with you, every step of the way." His words brought tears to Sarah's eyes. She had always feared that her past would hold her back from the things she truly wanted in life, and the thought of being a mother had always seemed too far out of reach. But with Ethan by her side, she realized that she didn't have to do it alone. And maybe, just maybe, she could take this next step. "I don't know what the future holds, but I know I want to build a family with you, Ethan," she said, her voice full of emotion. "I don't know when or how, but I think I'm ready to take that step." Ethan smiled, his eyes full of love and understanding. "We'll figure it out together, Sarah, whenever you're ready." As Sarah leaned into Ethan, her heart filled with a sense of peace. She had come so far, from a place of uncertainty and fear, to a life filled with purpose, love, and hope. And now, with the possibility of starting a family on the horizon, she knew that the best chapters of her story were still ahead of her. As Sarah and Ethan settled into their new life together, the days seemed to flow with an effortless rhythm. The foundation had grown beyond her wildest expectations, reaching more communities and making a tangible difference in the lives of so many. The mansion, once a symbol of oppression, now felt like a sanctuary, a home filled with love, purpose, and promise. But even as Sarah embraced this new chapter, there was still one question lingering in the back of her mind. What would motherhood look like for her? The thought had been with her for months, but it was during a quiet evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, that Sarah finally found the courage to bring it up again. Ethan and she had been discussing their goals for the foundation when the topic came up. "Ethan," Sarah began, her voice soft, "I've been thinking about something. About having children." Ethan, always attuned to her emotions, turned to face her with a gentle smile. "What about it?" he asked, his voice filled with patience. Sarah took a deep breath. "I think I'm ready," she said, her heart racing as she spoke the words out loud. "I want to start a family. I know it's a big step, and I'm not entirely sure what it will look like, but I think it's time." Ethan's eyes softened, and he took her hand in his. "Sarah, you've always been so strong, so independent, but I've never seen you as anything less than ready for this. You're already such a nurturing, caring person. I know you'll be an incredible mother." Sarah smiled, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. Ethan's words meant everything to her. She had feared for so long that her past, her baggage, would prevent her from embracing this new chapter. But now, with Ethan by her side, she felt ready to face the future. They spent the next few weeks discussing what starting a family would look like. Sarah knew there were still challenges ahead, balancing her career, the foundation, and the responsibilities of parenthood, but she was more than willing to take them on. Together, they worked on a plan, taking it step by step, knowing that whatever came next, they would face it together. As the months went by, Sarah's excitement grew. She found herself dreaming about the little moments, the first steps, the first words, the laughter filling their home. She could picture it all so clearly, her and Ethan raising a family together. But, of course, things didn't always go as planned. It wasn't long before Sarah realized that getting pregnant wasn't as easy as she had hoped. After months of trying, and with no success, The weight of the situation began to sink in. Sarah felt herself growing frustrated, her hopes of becoming a mother beginning to feel like an impossible dream. She had built so much in her life, her career, her foundation, her relationship with Ethan, but this one thing seemed out of reach. Ethan noticed the change in her almost immediately. "Sarah," he said one evening, sitting next to her on the couch, "I can see you're struggling. This isn't easy, I know. But you don't have to go through this alone. We'll figure it out, whatever it takes." Sarah leaned against him, her heart heavy. "I know, but it feels like I'm doing something wrong. Like I'm failing at this one thing, and I don't know how to fix it. I've been through so much already, and I thought this would be the part where everything falls into place." Ethan gently lifted her chin, his eyes filled with understanding. "Sarah, you're not failing. You're doing the best you can, and that's all anyone can do. We don't have to have everything figured out right away. We can take our time, find a solution together, and if it's meant to be, it will happen. And if not, then we'll find another way. There's no wrong path as long as we're walking it together." His words brought comfort to Sarah, but it didn't erase the deep-seated frustration she felt. The process of trying to conceive, with its months of uncertainty, was wearing her down. But just as she had learned to navigate life's obstacles before, she knew she would get through this as well. After consulting with doctors and considering different options, Sarah and Ethan decided to look into adoption. The idea of adopting a child felt like the right path. Sarah realized that being a mother didn't require a biological connection. It was about love, nurturing, and creating a home. She had so much love to give, and she knew that whether the child was biologically hers or not, the love she would have for them would be just as strong. Months later, after going through the adoption process, Sarah and Ethan received the news they had been waiting for. They had been matched with a little girl named Ava, a 3-year-old who had been living in foster care. The moment Sarah and Ethan met Ava, they knew she was meant to be a part of their family. Ava's bright smile and infectious laugh immediately melted their hearts. She was a little bundle of joy, full of curiosity and wonder, and Sarah couldn't help but feel an overwhelming sense of love for her. The adoption process took time, but every step of the way, Sarah and Ethan grew more certain that this was the right choice. They moved forward with the paperwork, and when the day finally arrived to bring Ava home, their hearts were full. Sarah looked at Ethan, tears in her eyes. "This is it," she whispered. "We're a family." Ethan smiled, his hand on hers. "We always were. We just needed to find each other." Bringing Ava into their home changed everything. Their house, which had once felt like a place of healing and personal growth, now felt like a true family home. The sound of Ava's laughter filled every room, and Sarah couldn't remember a time when she had felt more complete. The journey to this point had been long and filled with uncertainty, but in the end, Sarah knew that everything had happened exactly as it was meant to. She had found the love of her life in Ethan, and together, they had built the family they had always dreamed of. Sarah had finally come full circle. From the woman who had been lost and uncertain, to the woman who had rebuilt her life and found the courage to embrace motherhood, Sarah now knew that her journey was far from over. It was just the beginning of something beautiful, something that she would cherish for the rest of her life. As Sarah and Ethan settled into their new life with Ava, the dynamics of their home changed in ways they never could have anticipated. The house, once filled with the quiet hum of work and responsibility, now echoed with laughter, the sound of little feet running down the hall, and the innocent chatter of a young child discovering her world. Sarah had never imagined that motherhood, especially through adoption, would bring her so much joy. The bond she shared with Ava felt instant, a deep connection that transcended biology. Watching Ethan with Ava was equally heartwarming. The way he patiently played with her, read her stories, and guided her through the small moments of childhood filled Sarah with love for both of them. They were building the family Sarah had always dreamed of, one filled with love, laughter, and shared experiences. Yet, as happy as she was, Sarah couldn't ignore the underlying pressure that sometimes accompanied this new chapter. There were moments when the weight of her responsibilities as a mother, as the head of a growing foundation, and as a wife began to feel overwhelming. The balance was delicate, and as the foundation expanded its reach and impact, the demands on Sarah's time grew. She found herself torn between her work and her family, unsure of how to be everything to everyone. One afternoon, As Sarah sat in the living room, playing with Ava while Ethan worked from his office, she found herself lost in thought. She had always prided herself on her independence, her ability to handle things on her own, but now, with so many people depending on her, she couldn't help but wonder if she was doing enough. Ethan came in and sat beside her, noticing the faraway look in her eyes. "Sarah," he said softly, "what's on your mind?" She sighed, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "I don't know, Ethan. I love being a mom. I love everything about it. But sometimes, I feel like I'm failing. The foundation, Ava, our life together, there's so much to juggle, and I'm scared I'm not doing enough. I don't want to let anyone down." Ethan reached over and gently took her hand, his voice steady and reassuring. "Sarah, you're doing more than enough. You're building something incredible with the foundation. You're an amazing mother, and you're the heart of our family. But I get it. You're human. You don't have to be perfect, and you don't have to do it all alone." Sarah's eyes welled up with tears. "But I want to be perfect. I want to give Ava the best life, the best example, and I don't know if I can do it all." Ethan pulled her close, wrapping his arms around her. "You're already giving Ava the best life. Look at her. She's thriving because of you and the love we're giving her. As for the foundation, we're in this together. You don't have to carry it all by yourself. We'll share the load. You're not alone in this, Sarah." Sarah leaned into his embrace, letting the warmth of his words wash over her. Ethan was right. She didn't have to do it all. The weight she carried wasn't hers alone to bear. And maybe, just maybe, she needed to let go of the need for perfection. Over the next few weeks, Sarah began to take small steps toward balance. She delegated more responsibilities at the foundation, trusting her team to carry out the vision they had all worked so hard to build. She made sure to carve out time for her family, for Ethan and Ava, without feeling guilty for it. The foundation continued to grow, but so did their family. As Sarah embraced this new way of living, she started to realize that perfection wasn't what she needed. What she needed was love, support, and the willingness to ask for help when things got too overwhelming. One evening, after a particularly long day, Sarah found herself sitting on the porch, watching the sunset with Ethan. Ava was already in bed, her soft breathing echoing through the house as she slept peacefully. The quiet evening was a rare moment of calm, and Sarah felt herself relax, the tension from the day slowly fading away. "You're doing great, you know," Ethan said, his voice low and comforting. Sarah turned to him, a smile tugging at the corners of her lips. "Thank you. I'm trying to be. I just don't want to mess this up." Ethan reached over, gently cupping her face. "You won't. You're already giving Ava a life full of love. That's all she needs, and it's more than enough." Sarah leaned into his touch, her heart full of gratitude. For the first time in a while, she felt a sense of peace. She had everything she needed, her family, her purpose, and the strength to handle whatever came next. The following day, Sarah sat down with the foundation team for a meeting. There had been so many successes, but now it was time to take things to the next level. The focus would shift towards sustainability, ensuring that the foundation could continue its work long after she was gone. It was a big step, but it was one Sarah was ready to take. She knew she couldn't do it all on her own, but with her team, with Ethan by her side, and with Ava as their guiding light, she felt more confident than ever. Together, they would continue to make a difference. They would continue to change lives. And Sarah knew, with certainty, that she had found her true purpose, not in perfection, but in the love and support that surrounded her. As the months passed, Sarah found herself embracing motherhood and her role in the foundation with more ease. She still faced challenges, but she now understood that those challenges were part of the journey. She had come so far from the woman who had once been trapped by her past. Now, she was living a life full of meaning, love, and the knowledge that she had the power to create her own future. As Sarah's life continued to evolve, so did her understanding of what truly mattered. The foundation was flourishing, Ava was thriving, and she and Ethan had finally found a balance that worked for their family. They had learned to navigate the complexities of life together, supporting one another through the highs and lows. Sarah had discovered that the key to happiness wasn't perfection. It was in the moments of connection, the love they shared, and the unwavering support they gave each other. But despite the peace she had found, Sarah knew that there was still more to do. The foundation had grown beyond her expectations, and the impact it was having on communities worldwide was something she could be proud of. However, there was a growing desire within her to create something lasting, something that would leave a legacy long after she was gone. She had built a life from the ground up, one that was rooted in love, purpose, and community. But what about her personal legacy? What would her story look like for the generations to come? Sarah began to consider what more she could do, not just for her family, but for the world. She wanted to build something that would continue to change lives long after she was no longer here. And so, she began to think about starting a new initiative, something that would take the foundation's work even further. She envisioned a network of support for women, children, and families that would provide not only financial aid, but also mentorship, education, and a safe space for those who needed it most. This idea consumed Sarah's thoughts as she sat with Ethan one evening, after putting Ava to bed. They were sitting on the porch, enjoying the quiet of the night, the stars shining above them. "Ethan, I've been thinking a lot about the future," Sarah began, her voice thoughtful. "About what comes next for the foundation and for us. I've realized that I want to do more. I want to create something that lasts, something that can help women and children around the world build better lives for themselves. I think it's time to start a new initiative." Ethan turned to her, his eyes warm with understanding. "What kind of initiative?" he asked, sensing the excitement in her voice. Sarah smiled, feeling the spark of her vision ignite as she spoke. "I want to create a network for women and children in need, a place where they can get more than just financial support, a place where they can find mentorship, job training, emotional support, and a community that will help them rebuild their lives, just like I did. I want to help them find their own strength, their own purpose, and empower them to create a future they can be proud of." Ethan's smile deepened, and he nodded. "That sounds incredible, Sarah. You've always had such a strong vision for what you want to do in the world, and I know this will have a huge impact. I'm with you every step of the way, just like I always have been." Sarah felt a wave of gratitude wash over her. She had always known that Ethan was her rock, her partner, in every sense of the word. His unwavering support meant everything to her. Together, they could make this vision a reality. They spent the next few months working on the details of the new initiative. They called it EmpowerHER, a network designed to uplift women and children in need. Sarah used her experience in building the foundation to create a comprehensive program that included everything from financial literacy courses to leadership development. It was important to her that EmpowerHER not only provided for immediate needs, but also gave people the tools to create lasting change in their own lives. The response was overwhelming. Women and families from all over the world reached out, eager to be a part of the program. Sarah and Ethan worked tirelessly, setting up support systems, recruiting mentors, and creating partnerships with other organizations that shared their mission. As the months went by, Sarah began to see the impact of their work. Women who had once been struggling to get by were now starting businesses, going back to school, and finding jobs that allowed them to support their families. Children who had once been living in uncertainty were now thriving in safe environments, with access to education and resources they had never had before. The changes were profound, and Sarah knew that this was the legacy she had been searching for. But even as EmpowerHER grew, Sarah remained grounded in what mattered most, her family. The balance between her work and her home life was still a delicate one, but she had learned how to prioritize the things that truly mattered. She made sure to spend time with Ethan and Ava, to be present for the small, everyday moments that made life so special. It was during one of these moments, as Sarah watched Ava play in the yard, that she realized just how much she had grown. She had once been afraid of the unknown, afraid of what the future held. But now, she saw that the future was hers to create. She had found a way to make an impact, not only in her own life, but in the lives of others. And with Ethan by her side, she knew that anything was possible. As the years passed, EmpowerHER continued to grow, reaching more and more people around the world. Sarah's vision had become a reality, and the impact it had on women and children was immeasurable. She knew that her story was far from over, that there was still so much more to do, so many more lives to touch. But she was no longer afraid of the unknown. She had already created something lasting, something that would continue to change the world long after she was gone. Sarah had found her true purpose, and it was bigger than anything she had ever imagined. As she looked at her family, at the foundation she had built, and that the women and children EmpowerHER had helped. She knew that she had finally found the legacy she had always been searching for. As EmpowerHER continued to expand, Sarah found herself balancing more than ever. The program had become a lifeline for so many women and children, and as its reach grew, so did the demands. Sarah worked tirelessly, always determined to improve the lives of others, but in doing so, she found herself stretched thin. She had always prided herself on being strong, independent, and capable of handling everything on her own, but lately, the pressure of running the foundation while being a mother to Ava and maintaining a relationship with Ethan had begun to take its toll. The weight of it all became especially clear one evening after a particularly long day. Sarah was exhausted, having spent hours on a call with international partners, coordinating the next phase of EmpowerHER's global outreach. Ethan noticed the tired look in her eyes as she walked into the living room, her shoulders slumped with fatigue. "Sarah, you look wiped out," he said, his voice filled with concern. She sat down beside him on the couch and sighed deeply. "I'm fine, just a little tired. It's been a long day, but the foundation's doing so well. We're reaching so many people, and it's amazing. I just feel like I'm constantly running, trying to keep everything together." Ethan took her hand in his, giving it a gentle squeeze. "You're doing incredible work, Sarah, but you don't have to do it all alone. I'm here for you. We're in this together, remember?" Sarah smiled weakly, appreciating his support. She knew he was right, but the guilt of needing help, of not being able to handle everything, weighed on her. I know. It's just hard to let go sometimes. I've always been the one to take charge, to push myself, but I think I'm starting to burn out." Ethan nodded, his eyes full of understanding. "You're only human, Sarah. You've done so much, and you've given so much to others. But it's okay to ask for help. You don't have to be everything to everyone. Let me help, and let's find a way to share this load." Sarah's heart swelled with gratitude. She had spent so much of her life proving that she didn't need anyone's help, that she could do it all on her own. But in that moment, she realized that true strength wasn't about carrying the burden alone. It was about accepting support when needed. Over the next few days, Sarah took Ethan's advice to heart. She started delegating more at the foundation, bringing in trusted team members to take on more responsibilities. She also made sure to carve out more time for herself and for her family. With Ethan's help, Sarah learned to balance her roles as a mother, a wife, and the head of a growing global initiative. It wasn't always easy, and there were still days when she felt overwhelmed, but slowly, she found a rhythm. Her relationship with Ethan deepened as they navigated these challenges together, growing stronger with each passing day. They spent more quality time with Ava, focusing on creating lasting memories and enjoying the little moments of everyday life. One evening, as they sat at the dinner table, laughing and talking about their day, Sarah realized just how much she had gained over the past few years. She had come so far from the woman who had once felt lost, unsure of her place in the world. Now, she was surrounded by love, fulfillment, and purpose. Her foundation was thriving, her family was growing, and she had found peace within herself. But as Sarah sat there, watching Ethan and Ava, she couldn't help but think about the future. There was still so much more to do, so many lives to touch. EmpowerHER had become a powerful force for good, and Sarah knew that this was only the beginning. There was a vision she had, a dream of creating a worldwide network of support for women and children. A vision where every woman, regardless of where she came from, had access to the resources and mentorship she needed to succeed. It wasn't just about giving them the tools to survive, it was about helping them thrive. Sarah shared this vision with Ethan, and to her relief, he was just as passionate about it as she was. "I think we can take this even further," she said, her voice full of excitement. "Imagine a global network of women helping women, children supporting children, creating a ripple effect of empowerment that spreads across borders. We could build an even stronger community, one that's not just about financial aid, but about education, emotional support, and sustainable growth." Ethan smiled, his eyes shining with pride. "I love that idea, Sarah. You've always had the ability to see the big picture. Let's make it happen." And so, with a renewed sense of purpose, Sarah set her sights on expanding the foundation even further. They began working on new partnerships, new initiatives, and new programs that would not only support more women and children, but also create a global network of empowerment. They knew the road ahead would be challenging, but with each other's support, they were ready to take on anything. The journey that had started with Sarah's personal transformation had now grown into a movement, one that was changing lives all over the world. As Sarah looked around at the life she had built, she couldn't help but feel a deep sense of gratitude. She had created something meaningful, something that would continue to touch the lives of countless individuals. And as she sat next to Ethan, their hands intertwined, and Ava running around with laughter, she realized that this was her true legacy, not the wealth or success she had once dreamed of, but the lives she had touched and the difference she had made. Together, they had built something beautiful. The future was bright, and Sarah knew that with the love of her family, the support of her team, and the passion in her heart, she would continue to change the world, one step at a time. As the months passed, Sarah's vision for EmpowerHER continued to grow. The foundation had already reached thousands of women and children across the globe, providing them with the support, mentorship, and resources they needed to rebuild their lives. But now, Sarah felt it was time for the foundation to evolve even further, to become a movement that would last for generations to come. She wanted to create a world where women weren't just given a handout, but empowered to change the course of their own futures. She began to focus on the next phase of the foundation's work, long-term sustainability and creating a lasting impact. It wasn't just about providing immediate aid anymore. It was about creating systems and partnerships that would allow the people the foundation served to thrive on their own. It meant building educational programs, creating opportunities for leadership roles, and teaching financial independence. Sarah knew that if they truly wanted to change the world, they needed to start by changing the way people saw their own potential. Ethan, as always, was by her side through it all. Together, they worked tirelessly to put their new ideas into action. The work was grueling, and there were times when Sarah felt the weight of it all, balancing the demands of the foundation, her role as a mother, and her relationship with Ethan. But she found strength in her purpose, and in the love and support that surrounded her. Ethan was her anchor, constantly reminding her that they were a team and that together, they could tackle anything. They expanded the network of partnerships, reaching out to businesses, governments, and other nonprofits. Sarah understood the importance of collaboration. She knew that if EmpowerHER was going to reach its full potential, it would need the support of a global community. She worked long hours, strategizing and leading meetings, and yet she never lost sight of the importance of family. She made sure to take Ava to the park, to spend time together in the evenings, and to continue to nurture the bond she shared with Ethan. It was a delicate balance, but Sarah was determined to make it work. One evening, after a particularly long day, Sarah found herself sitting with Ethan on the porch, the two of them watching the sunset together. Ava had just gone to bed, and the house was quiet, the calm before another busy day. "Ethan," Sarah said, her voice tired but filled with contentment, "I can't believe how far we've come. I never imagined my life would turn out this way. I never imagined that we would be able to create something like this, something that's truly making a difference." Ethan turned to her, his hand reaching for hers. "You've done more than just create something, Sarah. You've created a movement. You've inspired people all over the world. You're changing lives, and you're showing people what's possible." Sarah smiled, her heart swelling with pride. She had worked so hard to get here, and hearing Ethan's words filled her with a deep sense of fulfillment. But even as she basked in the success of the foundation, she knew that there was still work to be done. The world was changing, and with it, the challenges the foundation faced. There were always new obstacles to overcome, new barriers to break. But Sarah was ready. She was ready to face whatever came next. Over the next few months, the foundation reached new milestones. EmpowerHER began to partner with even more organizations and governments, and its programs expanded to reach thousands of new women and children. Sarah continued to build on the foundation's success, always thinking ahead, always pushing for more. But despite all the growth, Sarah never lost sight of what mattered most, her family. She knew that her work was important, but so was the time she spent with Ethan and Ava. They had created a life together, and Sarah was committed to cherishing every moment of it. One afternoon, while walking through the park with Ava, Sarah had a realization. She had spent so much of her life focused on building something external, on changing the world, that she hadn't always allowed herself to just enjoy the world she had built. It was in that moment, as she watched Ava chase after a butterfly, that Sarah understood something important. The true success of her journey wasn't just in the foundation or the work she was doing. It was in the love she had found with Ethan, the family they had created, and the quiet moments of joy they shared together. The foundation was her legacy, yes, but her life, her true legacy, was in the way she had built her family. The foundation was just the beginning. It was a way for Sarah to give back to the world, but the real gift was the life she had built, a life filled with love, connection, and the kind of fulfillment that came from truly living her purpose. As Sarah continued to lead EmpowerHER, she felt a deep sense of peace. She was no longer just the woman who had overcome her past. She was the woman who had created a future for herself, her family, and countless others. And she knew that this journey was far from over. The future was bright, and Sarah was ready for whatever came next. With Ethan by her side, and Ava in her arms, she knew that together, they could continue to make a difference and build a world where every woman and child had the opportunity to thrive. As the months went by, Sarah continued to pour herself into her work with EmpowerHER. The foundation had grown exponentially, reaching more women and children worldwide, offering them not only financial aid but also the tools to build a better future. However, as the foundation's impact deepened, Sarah found herself at a crossroads, torn between her commitment to the cause and the desire to spend more time with her family. She had always prided herself on being able to handle everything, but the demands of both her personal life and her work were becoming increasingly difficult to juggle. Ethan noticed the strain in Sarah, the way she seemed to carry the weight of the world on her shoulders. He saw how tirelessly she worked to expand the foundation, how deeply she cared about every single life it touched. But he also knew that, at times, it seemed as if she was losing herself in the process. One evening, as Sarah was reviewing a new report about the Foundation's global outreach, Ethan sat beside her and gently took the papers from her hands. "Sarah," he said softly, "I know how much this means to you, but you've been burning the candle at both ends. You need to take a break. You need to rest." Sarah looked at him, her eyes tired but filled with determination. "I can't, Ethan. There's so much to do, so many lives that need our help. I can't just step back now. It feels like everything is on my shoulders." Ethan reached for her hand, his voice gentle but firm. "It's not all on you. I'm here. We're in this together, and you've built an amazing team at the foundation. They can handle things while you focus on yourself for a while. I want you to remember that you're not alone in this." Sarah hesitated, the pressure of her responsibilities weighing heavily on her. But as she looked at Ethan, she realized he was right. She had always tried to do everything herself, thinking that if she didn't, she would be failing the people who depended on her. But in this moment, she understood that stepping back didn't mean failure. It meant trusting the people around her and taking the time to recharge. With Ethan's support, Sarah took the much-needed break she had been avoiding. For the first time in a long while, she took a weekend off. No meetings, no calls, no work. She and Ethan spent the weekend at their favorite cabin in the mountains, a peaceful retreat away from the chaos of their everyday lives. The time away gave Sarah the opportunity to reset, to breathe, and to reconnect with herself. As she sat on the porch with Ethan, watching the sunset, Sarah felt a renewed sense of clarity. She realized that in order to continue the work she loved, she needed to take care of herself first. It wasn't selfish, it was necessary. The following week, Sarah returned to the foundation with a new perspective. She delegated more responsibilities to her team, trusting them to carry out the vision they had all worked so hard to build. She also set boundaries for herself, making sure to spend quality time with Ethan and Ava, and even carving out time for hobbies and activities she had neglected. The balance wasn't perfect, and there were still days when she felt overwhelmed. But Sarah knew that she was making progress. One evening, as she and Ethan sat in the living room after putting Ava to bed, Sarah turned to him and smiled. "Thank you," she said, her voice filled with gratitude, "for reminding me that I don't have to do it all, for showing me that it's okay to take a step back sometimes." Ethan smiled back at her, his eyes filled with love and understanding. "You're welcome, Sarah. You're amazing at what you do, but you don't have to carry everything alone. You've already done so much, and you deserve to take care of yourself, too." As Sarah reflected on their conversation, she realized how much she had grown over the years. She had once believed that success came from doing everything on her own, from constantly pushing herself to the limit. But now, she understood that true strength came from knowing when to ask for help, when to rest, and when to trust others. It wasn't about doing it all. It was about doing what mattered, with the people who mattered most. EmpowerHER continued to thrive under Sarah's leadership, and with her newfound sense of balance, she was able to continue making a lasting impact on the lives of countless women and children. But more importantly, she had created a life that she could truly cherish, a life with Ethan, Ava, and the knowledge that she had built something meaningful, not only in the foundation but also in her family. As Sarah looked around at the life she had built, she felt an overwhelming sense of peace. She had come so far from the woman who once felt lost and uncertain. Now, she was confident in her ability to make a difference in the world, and even more confident in her ability to prioritize the things that truly mattered: love, family, and self-care. The future was still uncertain, but Sarah knew that no matter what came next, she was ready. She had the strength to face any challenge, the love of her family to support her, and the unwavering belief that with each new day, she would continue to make the world a better place. As the foundation continued to grow and thrive, Sarah's commitment to EmpowerHER and her family remained unwavering. She had found a way to balance her passion for helping others with her love for her own family, and the results were evident. Women and children across the globe were finding hope and new opportunities through the programs she had created, and Sarah knew that the work she had started was just the beginning. But as the foundation expanded, Sarah began to realize that the challenges she had faced in finding balance were not going away. The world had changed, and with it, the scope of her responsibilities. The foundation was reaching more people, and with success came new challenges: funding, resources, and the sheer scale of managing a global initiative. One afternoon, Sarah sat at her desk in the mansion, reviewing reports and planning the next steps for the foundation. Despite the progress they had made, the weight of responsibility was heavy. She had been able to delegate more tasks to her team, but the decisions she made still had a far-reaching impact. She couldn't help but wonder if she was doing enough, if she was making the right choices for the future of the foundation. Ethan, always attuned to her thoughts, came into the office and sat next to her. "You've been at this all day, haven't you?" he said gently. "I can tell you're getting overwhelmed. What's going on in that head of yours?" Sarah smiled faintly, but didn't look up from the papers in front of her. "It's just, there's so much to think about. We're making a difference, but there's so much more to do. I sometimes wonder if I'm doing enough, if I'm making the right decisions." Ethan placed a hand on hers, his touch grounding her. "You're doing more than enough, Sarah. Look at all that we've accomplished. Look at how far EmpowerHER has come. You've changed so many lives. But it's okay to take a step back and see what else can be done. You don't have to carry the whole world on your shoulders." Sarah sighed, grateful for his understanding, but still feeling the weight of responsibility. "I know. Sometimes I feel like there's so much pressure to keep going, to keep improving. It's hard to turn off the feeling that there's always more to be done." Ethan nodded thoughtfully. "You've always been driven, Sarah. But you also need to take care of yourself, to let others step up and help. You've built something incredible, and now it's time to let others take on more of the weight. I'm here for you, and so is the team. You don't have to do it alone." Sarah let out a deep breath, feeling the tension in her shoulders begin to ease. She had always been the one to take charge, to shoulder the burden, but Ethan was right. It was time to trust the team she had built, to trust that the foundation would continue to grow even if she didn't have to do everything herself. Over the next few weeks, Sarah took a step back from some of the day-to-day responsibilities of the foundation. She focused more on the bigger picture, strategizing for the future, forging new partnerships, and ensuring the foundation's long-term sustainability. She still played an active role, but she no longer felt the need to micromanage. This change in perspective was freeing for Sarah. She found herself enjoying her time with Ethan and Ava even more, knowing that the foundation was in good hands. They took family trips together, spent quiet evenings at home, and made new memories as a family. It wasn't always easy, and there were still days when Sarah felt overwhelmed, but she was learning how to manage it all. One afternoon, while Sarah and Ethan were out for a walk in the park, Sarah turned to him with a smile. "You know," she said, I'm starting to realize something. I've been so focused on making sure everything was perfect, on trying to do everything myself. But I've learned that it's okay to let go of that need for perfection. What matters is that we're making a difference, that we're doing our best. And I'm so grateful for the family and the team we've built. Ethan took her hand, giving it a gentle squeeze. You've done more than your best, Sarah. You've built something incredible. And you've done it with love, with heart, and with a vision that's changing the world. That's what really matters. Sarah smiled, feeling a sense of peace wash over her. For the first time in a long time, she felt like she had found the right balance between her work, her family, and herself. The road ahead was still uncertain, but she knew that with Ethan by her side, and with the support of her team, she could face anything that came her way. The foundation would continue to grow, but so would her family. And together, they would continue to create a future full of hope, opportunity, and love. As Sarah looked around at the life they had built, the family, the foundation, the impact they were making on the world, she knew that the journey she had started all those years ago was far from over. It was just the beginning of something even greater, something that would continue to change lives and inspire others for years to come. As the months continued to unfold, Sarah felt more and more connected to the life she had built, both personally and professionally. The foundation had become a powerful force, impacting the lives of countless women and children across the globe. What started as a small idea had blossomed into a global movement. However, as the foundation's reach continued to grow, Sarah began to realize that there was still so much more she wanted to achieve. She had always been passionate about empowering others, but now, the vision for the future was becoming clearer. It wasn't just about providing opportunities. It was about creating systems that would break cycles of poverty and inequality for good. As she sat in her office late one evening, reviewing the numbers and progress of the foundation, she couldn't help but feel a sense of urgency. There were still so many obstacles to overcome, so many people who needed help. But there was one thing that had become increasingly apparent. To Sarah, it was time for a change. She had spent years building EmpowerHER from the ground up, and now it was time to take a step back and see the bigger picture. She knew that in order for the foundation to grow sustainably, she needed to shift her focus. She needed to create a system that would not only serve the people in need, but also provide the resources, education, and support needed for them to give back to their communities. Sarah wanted to make sure that EmpowerHER wasn't just a temporary solution. It had to be a lasting change. She started by expanding the foundation's efforts to include more holistic support for the communities they were serving. This meant focusing on local leaders, entrepreneurs, and educators who could carry the torch forward and create their own initiatives. Sarah had seen firsthand the power of community and how transformative it could be when people were given the tools to build something meaningful. This idea ignited a new fire in her. She began brainstorming new projects and partnerships with organizations that shared her vision of long-term sustainability. At the same time, she continued to strengthen the foundation's existing programs, ensuring that they were effective and reaching as many people as possible. Ethan continued to be her rock throughout this journey. He was there, every step of the way, offering his unwavering support. As Sarah dove into this new phase of the foundation, she realized just how much she had come to rely on him, not only in the work they were doing, but in her life as well. They had built a beautiful partnership, one where they complemented each other's strengths and supported one another in their weaknesses. But it wasn't just their work that had grown. They had grown as a family, too. Ava was now a vibrant, curious child, and Sarah and Ethan had created a life full of love and stability for her. They had worked hard to ensure that Ava would never face the same challenges Sarah had once struggled with. They were dedicated to giving her a childhood filled with joy and opportunity. One evening, as they all sat together in the living room, playing board games and laughing, Sarah realized just how far she had come. The weight of the past, her struggles, her fears, her doubts, no longer held her back. She had created a life that was truly hers, a life she could be proud of. She had found her purpose, and it was bigger than she had ever imagined. EmpowerHER was more than just a foundation. It was a movement, one that was changing the world one step at a time. And Sarah knew that the journey was far from over. As she looked around at her family, her work, and the impact they were making together, she felt a deep sense of gratitude. She had learned so much about herself over the years, and she realized that the greatest gift of all was the love and support she had found along the way. There would always be challenges ahead, but Sarah was ready for them. She knew that with Ethan by her side, with their team at the foundation, and with the strength she had built over the years, she could face anything. The future was full of possibility, and Sarah felt more prepared than ever to take it on. Her story had come full circle, from the woman who once felt lost to the woman who had found her voice, her purpose, and her family. She had not only changed her own life, but had also empowered others to do the same. And as she continued to build her legacy, she knew that the best was yet to come. As Sarah continued to lead EmpowerHER through its expansive growth, she began to realize that the impact of the foundation had reached a pivotal moment. The core mission of the organization had remained the same: to empower women and children around the world. But the success of the programs, the partnerships, and the stories of transformation had created a new kind of responsibility. EmpowerHER was no longer just an organization. It had become a movement, and with that came the weight of ensuring its sustainability for generations to come. Sarah had always been focused on the immediate needs of the communities they served. Whether it was providing financial support, educational resources, or mentorship programs, her passion was to be in the trenches, making sure that every woman and child had the opportunity to succeed. But now, with the foundation expanding into new regions, reaching thousands of people across the globe, Sarah recognized that her role needed to evolve. She couldn't do it all herself anymore. It was time to focus on ensuring that EmpowerHER would continue to thrive long. After she had stepped back from the day-to-day operations, the realization came one evening when she was sitting in her office, reviewing the annual reports. The data was impressive: new partnerships, new programs, an ever-growing network of support for women. But a thought kept crossing her mind. What would happen when she could no longer be the face of the foundation? What would happen when the world changed, or when the challenges of leadership became too much to bear alone? EmpowerHER had been built on her vision, but now it needed to be built on a foundation that could withstand the tests of time. Sarah knew that she had to create a structure that would continue to provide the same level of support, passion, and commitment, even without her at the helm. The foundation needed to evolve beyond her. She needed to cultivate a new generation of leaders, men and women who shared her vision and could take EmpowerHER to new heights. This realization was both liberating and daunting. For so long, Sarah had been the driving force behind everything: every meeting, every partnership, every decision. But now, as her family grew and her vision for the foundation expanded, Sarah understood that her strength was not in doing everything herself. It was in empowering others to take charge. She began making plans to establish an executive board for the foundation, filled with individuals who had not only the skills to lead but the passion to continue the work. Sarah also decided to put in place mentorship programs for the next generation of leaders, particularly young women who had the potential to become changemakers in their own right. She knew this was the right decision, but it was also one of the hardest she had ever made. Letting go of control wasn't easy, but it was necessary for the foundation to endure. Sarah also realized that as she focused more on strategic growth, she had to spend more time with her family, especially with Ethan and Ava. They had created something truly special together. But the truth was, she had been so absorbed in her work that she had sometimes neglected the personal side of her life. The conversations with Ethan became a crucial anchor for her, helping her keep her priorities aligned and giving her the confidence to make these monumental changes. She started taking more time off, taking family trips and evenings free from the constant pressures of work. It was during one of these family vacations, as they were enjoying a peaceful weekend in the mountains, that Sarah realized how much she had missed these moments of tranquility. The time with Ethan and Ava was invaluable, and she didn't want to lose sight of it as the foundation grew. On a particularly serene evening, as they were watching Ava play in the yard, Ethan turned to Sarah with a thoughtful expression. "You've built something incredible, Sarah. But I want you to know, I'm here. You don't have to do it all alone, and you don't have to sacrifice our time for the sake of the foundation. I believe in what we're doing, but I also believe in our family." Sarah smiled at him, her heart full of gratitude. Ethan had always been her greatest supporter, and his words meant the world to her. "I know, Ethan. I've been so focused on the foundation that sometimes I forget that I have everything I need right here, with you and Ava. From that moment on, Sarah made a promise to herself and to her family. The foundation would continue to grow, but she would also ensure that the love and connection with her family remained the central part of her life. The shift wasn't easy, but it was necessary. As Sarah began to take more time for her personal life, she felt an incredible sense of clarity. The work she had done with EmpowerHER was her legacy, but her family was her foundation. With Ethan's unwavering support and Ava's infectious joy, Sarah knew that she could continue to lead the foundation, but more importantly, she could do so in a way that was balanced, thoughtful, and true to the values she held dear. EmpowerHER would continue to evolve, adapt, and grow into something even greater than Sarah had ever dreamed. And as she focused on developing new leadership within the foundation, she also knew that this journey would not be hers alone. It was a movement, a collective effort that involved everyone: her family, her team, the mentors and leaders who shared her vision, and every woman and child they had touched. Together, they were all building a future full of possibilities, one where everyone had the chance to thrive. Sarah had found the courage to step back, but that wasn't the end. It was the beginning of a new chapter, one where the foundation would flourish, and her personal life would be the driving force behind it all. As Sarah looked around at the life she had built, a sense of peace washed over her. EmpowerHER was thriving, reaching more women and children than ever before, providing them with the resources and support they needed to transform their lives. But it wasn't just the foundation that had flourished, it was her entire journey, one that had begun with uncertainty and fear, but had blossomed into something she never could have imagined. She had come a long way from the woman who had once been trapped in a life defined by someone else's expectations. Now, Sarah was free. Free to create the life she had always dreamed of, free to pursue her passion for helping others, and most importantly, free to be a mother and a partner in a family that had become her anchor. Looking at Ethan and Ava, Sarah felt a deep sense of fulfillment. They had built something beautiful together, not just in the foundation, but in the love and connection they shared. They had faced challenges, yes, but every challenge had only made them stronger. As she reflected on her journey, Sarah realized that the key to her success had never been about the accolades or recognition. It had always been about the people she helped along the way and the people who had supported her. EmpowerHER was just one part of the story. The other part, the more important part, was the legacy she was building in her family, in the relationships she had nurtured, and in the ways she had learned to live her life with purpose and balance. She had come to understand that the most important thing in life wasn't about doing everything herself or having everything perfect. It was about love, connection, and giving others the opportunity to create their own success. The foundation was no longer just a reflection of Sarah's dreams. It was a testament to the collective power of everyone who had been a part of it. Every woman who had joined the programs, every mentor who had guided someone along the way, every child who had found hope. It all added up to something bigger than Sarah could have imagined. EmpowerHER was no longer just her story. It was a movement that would continue to shape the world long after she was gone. As she watched Ava play in the yard, laughing and full of joy, Sarah felt a deep sense of pride. She had created something that would last, a life filled with love, purpose, and a lasting impact on those around her. Ethan joined her outside, taking her hand and pulling her close. "We've come so far, haven't we?" he said softly, his voice full of admiration. Sarah nodded, leaning her head on his shoulder. "Yes, we have, and I'm so proud of everything we've built together. But more than anything, I'm proud of the life we've created." Ethan smiled and kissed the top of her head. "We've created something beautiful, Sarah. And the best part is that it's only just the beginning." As Sarah looked around at her family, at the legacy of EmpowerHER, and at the future they were building together, she knew he was right. This wasn't the end of the journey. It was just the beginning of something even greater. She had created a world where every woman, every child, had the opportunity to thrive. And with Ethan by her side and Ava growing into a strong, compassionate young girl, Sarah knew that she was living the life she had always dreamed of. The future was bright, and it was hers to shape. Together, they would continue to change lives, to lift others up, and to create a world where love, purpose, and empowerment were the foundation of everything they did. With each new chapter, Sarah knew that the story of EmpowerHER and of her own life would continue to unfold in beautiful and unexpected ways. The journey was far from over, but Sarah was ready to face whatever came next. She had built something extraordinary, not just in the foundation, but in the way she lived her life. And that was the legacy that would endure. In this inspiring millionaire story, we follow the journey of a woman who overcame her past, built a thriving foundation, and discovered her true purpose. This is not just another tale of wealth, but a transformative journey filled with personal growth, love, and giving back. As we explore this millionaire story, we see how a woman's strength and determination lead her to create a movement that empowers women and children around the world. From humble beginnings to establishing a global network, her journey shows that true success is not measured by money alone, but by the lives we touch and the legacies we leave behind. This millionaire story is one of resilience, overcoming obstacles, and building something that can last for generations. With each step, our protagonist learns that true power lies not in wealth, but in the ability to change lives. Through her work with EmpowerHER, she proves that a millionaire story can be more than just financial success. It can be about creating opportunities, lifting others up, and making a lasting impact. The culmination of her efforts shows that when you believe in yourself and use your success for good, the possibilities are endless. The final chapters of this millionaire story highlight how she not only redefined her own future, but inspired a global movement of change. A millionaire story with heart, purpose, and a future that promises even more success for those she continues to empower.